Hello everyone, and welcome to week 10 of Qigong Foundation practices. Alright, there were a couple of questions that came in that I said I would either talk about on this video or maybe demonstrate some things as well. So one of them was about the direction of the movement of energy in the meridians. Now, that wasn't the topic of the last week's practice, but it's relevant to the practices, so that's a good question to ask. And I did provide some written material about this as well in one of the written answers as well. But basically, the energy moves through the organ meridians in a set direction because the organ meridians all function in a set direction. They all move in a set direction. So your heart pumps blood in a set direction through your body. If it were to pump blood in the opposite direction, that would be bad news, right? The gallbladder releases bile, the intestines move things through in a particular direction, the kidneys move things through in a particular direction. They all have a set direction of flow of their activity, and because there's this connection between what's happening in the organs and then what's happening in the external body, this affects the direction of flow of energy in the external body as well. So if you flip that around and you try to push the energy the other direction, a couple of things can happen. It can result in damage, very subtle damage to the external body as the energy tries to go the wrong way through it. Rather than actually pumping the energy through the wrong direction, what can happen is it can damage the tissue, so the energy just kind of flows outwards rather than pumping it backwards. And in many ways that's actually better than pumping the energy in the opposite direction, because if the energy does actually succeed in moving the opposite direction through the channel, that then is going to disrupt the activity inside the organ and either throw it off its natural rhythm in a mild situation, or potentially actually cause it to function in the opposite direction, and that of course is bad news. It's a good recipe for death. Now, okay, I've answered the question. This isn't something that commonly happens. It's not a way it's commonly applied. Obviously that's something that's rather unpleasant to think about possibly, but that's how it works. If you get far enough in Kung Fu, that becomes a relevant thing, disrupting the organs or disrupting the channels, so they disrupt the organs as a way to harm. And this is one of the things with knowledge. Knowledge is always a double-edged sword. It's always effective in both directions, and it's up to you how you choose to apply that knowledge. Sometimes people like to say, oh, nothing harmful could ever come from this, nothing, it's not true. If something is effective, if it has an effect, then it can be used in either a constructive or a destructive way. You could never ever drink too much water. Drinking water is healthy for you. Nah, not true. Water applied in the wrong way or in too much quantity can be harmful. It can make you choke. It can give you hyponatremia, which is where all the fluids stop moving properly through the cells, and so on and so on. So it's the same with Qigong. So I hope it's not too off-putting to understand some of the unpleasant aspects of what can happen with the energy as well. I guess as another part of that, I did mention that it this is applied in Kung Fu, the application of this knowledge. It is something that occurs naturally sometimes as well. Sometimes just by chance accident, it can throw things out, in which case obviously understanding the detrimental effect of this can be useful if you're going to try to remedy it. And also another time when it happens is particularly as people get very, very old, and essentially their systems start to shut down. So their natural rhythm starts to become so weak that it's very easily confused, and it can switch and go the other way. And of course this is something that generally would happen shortly before death. Anyway, okay, moving on to other things for now. So the other question was to get a little bit more information about the relationship of the emotions to some of the organs in the metal and in the water element. So I'll talk a little bit more about that now and maybe demonstrate a little bit more on that as well. Okay, so the water element and the emotion of fear. In the video on the website, we looked a little bit at this movement of the legs and things. When you're fearful, they tend to come in. When you're confident, they tend to come out, and so on. And so that was in relationship to riding a horse using a bow and arrow to shoot the eagle. So of course the other exercise that we're using in this set of exercises relating to the water element is for the bladder. So it's black tiger straightens its waist. So if we look further at the posture of fear, different elements of the posture of fear, there's a lot of things that happen, but a few big things we can identify. So in particular, there's the legs coming in, there's also the shoulders pulling inwards, and often with fear, we're also going to bend the back. The back will bend, we will cower, and try to avoid and get out of the way from something that we fear. Now, none of this is a bad thing. These are all healthy responses. These are ways to protect us in certain situations, but they're not the only way that we can respond. We can also respond with confidence as well, which can also be effective. So the posture of confidence as opposed to the posture of fear. So fear, we're pulling the legs in, the shoulders in, bending the back. With confidence, we straighten the back up, open the shoulders, open the legs. We do all of this within riding a horse using a bow and arrow to shoot the eagle. All of that, straightening the back, opening the shoulders, opening the legs. In the black tiger straightens its waist, we specifically focus on one aspect, and that is the straightening up of the spine, and particularly the lower back. Because in this exercise, if our spine has collapsed to one side, when we do the exercise, it has a balancing effect as we pull through those back muscles to help to straighten that spine up. So if we're in this kind of slumped over because of some deep fear, we straighten it up with the exercise so that we become more upright, which then makes it easier to open our shoulders and open our hips and become confident rather than fearful. Alright, so the other one was asked for some more information about the metal element, and so relating to that is the emotion of grief. Now, it already talked about the lungs in a bit of detail on the video, and how this, opening the shoulders, opening the lungs changes the posture. So another aspect of grief. So grief, healthy grief is processing and letting go and moving on. Unhealthy grief is when you don't process, but instead you hold on. And when we do this, often this results in tension in the back. The nerves become tense, and this tenses the muscles and so on. And as we tense here, it puts tension into the nerves that go into the large intestine, quite literally causing us to hold on. Now that holding on can just be tension through the large intestine, or it can literally be build-up of matter within the large intestine that we don't just process and move through, and we end up with things stuck within our body. And so the exercise for the large intestine pairs with the exercise for the lungs, and in this we open up through the lower back as we massage the large intestine, as a way to help us in a healthy way process and let go and move through. Yeah, and so we have healthy grief as opposed to unhealthy grief. Interestingly, if you look at the connection between these two exercises, as we do the exercise that we're doing for the lungs, when we make this big circle behind our back, as well as feeling the stretch through the arm, often you're also going to notice there's a real loosening through the lower back as well, and so that's actually also preparing and opening up those nerves so that the large intestine is going to function well too. Also, the connection between the lungs and the large intestine just within the organ space. When we breathe deeply, of course the diaphragm needs to move, up and down, and this has a tendency to massage the contents of the intestines. If the intestines are blocked up, this then makes it hard for the diaphragm to move, and then the lungs can't function well. Equally, if we're holding our diaphragm tense by not breathing fully with our lungs, it means that the large intestine doesn't get the massaging that it needs to be fully healthy and have things move through. So hopefully all of that's useful to you at this point. Okay, so moving on from that, this is week 10. And we've been through quite a lot of different things in this course. We started with some of the real foundations of stances and posture, energy awareness, breathing and meditation and different things like this. And then we moved into learning the physical movements of the exercises and then different aspects of them with the meridians and the organs and the emotions, and then most recently doing the exercises at different speeds and with different tensions to feel what that does and how that adjusts the energy caused by doing the exercises. So we're starting to wrap the course up now, and it's actually time to go through a little bit of a process of review. And so this week, because it's been a while since we focused on some of those breathing things and stances and so on, this week your homework or your work is to actually go back and review some of those things from the very beginning of the course, practice them again, maybe see how they've changed. You may notice that some of them have become easier, or you may notice that now you notice different things about them now that you've been practicing for longer, and how they integrate into the overall practice. So good opportunity to go over those and also to answer any questions or ask any questions that may come up as a result of that. So of course I look forward to hearing from you at the end of the week, hear how you're getting on with your progress reports, and of course answer any questions that you may have as well.